We've been asked a question by one of our followers about photophobia. So I see this a lot on Facebook groups and online forums for people with albinism. They wanted to know if photophobia gets worse as you get older. Have you noticed that? I guess you see kids though, but is there any evidence? Should that be the case? Could that be the case? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Honestly, I don't think anyone's done a study. So from a sciencey answer, I'm not sure we know that. It'd be quite a hard thing to study, to be honest, as well. But in my practice, I don't think I've had lots of people report that. Got no sort of insights from the seeing people with albinism for many years sort of side of things. But then, to be fair, I don't see so many adults. So I see kids for a long time, but I don't see them beyond 18 on the whole. The other, I'm just thinking about why that might be the case. On the whole, people who have the ability to produce some pigment tend to have a couple of spikes during teenagehood, particularly where they'll have a bit more pigment. So when hormones start knocking around, on the whole, that's when people with hair that's light brown or blonde will say, actually, it's definitely got a bit darker recently, and same with skin potentially as well. You know, it's not massive, but there's a bit there. And also people, on the whole, most people's pupils are on average bigger when they're younger and tend to get a little bit smaller as you get older. So those would actually sort of show the opposite, wouldn't they? They'd actually make you less photophobic as you get older. So the honest answer is I don't know, but I don't hear that a lot. It's interesting that you do.
Does this make any sense? Right, this is me pretending that I know stuff about eyes and I'm some kind of trained professional.
Yes,
right? So here we go. Right, when you get older, or if you have worn contact lenses for a long time, do you get drier eyes? And if you get dry eyes, don't some people with dry eyes have light sensitivity? Like, aren't your eyes light sensitive anyway? So if you put that on top of having like albinism, could stuff like that have a bearing?
Yeah, it could definitely. If you've got dry eyes, I mean, dry eyes is not just a given. Everybody doesn't just get dry eyes enough to have photophobia from it, because when you have dry eyes, on the whole, they have to be moderately severe for you to start to get little dry patches on your cornea. So actually little dots, which are a bit like having dirt on the windscreen of a car. But I mean, when you get to that stage, absolutely, you would have some more photophobia. So yes, it's definitely possible. But I would argue that most people don't get that far with their dry eye, I would say. So it's possible that could contribute. And I suppose the other thing that can contribute is that the lens inside your eye everyone thinks it's completely clear because all the light has to go through it. In fact, it's not completely clear. And as you go through life, it starts to get little tiny dots in it, or even a bit of colour to it. And sometimes if you have that enough, that we would start calling it a cataract, then a cataract in itself can splay the light around. And often people describe that as being a little bit a bit like photophobia. So that's another potential plausible thought. But you're right, it may be a combination of those factors. And I guess if you're a person with albinism and you think you're definitely getting more photophobic, it is worth visiting probably an optometrist to start with, just to check you haven't got those common things that would make it worse in anyone, let alone someone who's really predisposed to it anyway. So yeah, it's a good point.
Do people with albinism get cataracts earlier than people who don't, or not?
Not as far as I'm aware. I don't again, like most of these questions, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure that science has ever been done. Again, thinking about plausible ways, I mean, we know that UV light absolutely can increase cataract. So if there's more UV light going in because it's getting through the iris and hitting the lens, then possibly. But I don't have a perfect answer for that, I don't think.